Hello everyone, and welcome to part 4 of our online car sales video training series. My name is Timothy De Jesus, and I'm the CEO of Dealer Masters LLC. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about vehicle selection. Now, what is vehicle selection? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's when you select the vehicle with and or for the customer. And we're gonna get into that in just a little bit. Now, why is vehicle selection important? Well, this is the step in the process where you can easily lose credibility. So if you get to the point of vehicle selection with a customer and you select the wrong vehicle and you turn the customer off, you could potentially lose the sale right at this moment without realizing it. The customer could then become disengaged and disinterested, all because you're showing them a vehicle and you've made it seem as though you're not listening to the customer. So let's get right into it. Now, if you've done a proper greet sheet, we covered the greet sheet in a previous training session, so it's a very important part of the process. If you haven't seen the greet sheet training session, I highly suggest you check it out. Anyway, if you've done a proper greet sheet, you should have a good idea of what type of vehicle you're going to be showing the customer. So it really comes down to the type of buyer that you're with. If you're with a wants buyer, you're probably going to show them the exact vehicle they came in looking for. If you're with a needs buyer, you're going to be showing them a vehicle that best suits their needs based on the inventory that you have. Now, the most important part of vehicle selection is knowing your inventory. This is typically where I see the sale get lost the most, because what happens is, as a salesperson, if a customer comes in either looking for a specific vehicle or they don't know exactly what they're looking for, but you point them in the wrong direction, you lose credibility. As soon as you lose credibility, you lose the customer's trust. And at that point, there's a good chance they're not going to continue the sale with you because they've lost faith in you as a salesperson. So I'll share with you some of the typical mistakes that I see salespeople making when it comes to vehicle selection. Now, when it comes to a wants buyer, what I've typically seen is that a salesperson will say that a vehicle is sold when in fact it's not sold. So another salesperson may have gotten a deposit on that vehicle a week ago, and they're unfamiliar with their inventory. So a customer comes in looking for a specific vehicle and they tell the customer, well, I'm sorry, that car is sold. Meanwhile, the car is still in inventory. The car is still on the website showing available. And what happens is they just assumed that the deposit is still active on that car. And this happens quite often. It happens more than you'd realize. So now what happens is, if you lose that customer's faith and trust, because they're like, oh, they're disappointed that they came in all this way and the car is sold and nobody told them, now you've lost credibility with the customer. And especially with a wants buyer, they want exactly what they want. And if you don't have something very similar in inventory, they're not going to continue the process. So now you've lost trust and credibility, not only in you, but lost faith and credibility within the dealership. So the customer now says, no, thank you, I'm just going to pass. Now, let's say the salesperson finds out a couple days later that the car was available the entire time. When they call that customer, do you think that customer is going to be receptive to working with them? The odds are they most likely won't. And they probably moved on to the very next dealership that had a similar car that was next on their list. So that's one of the very common mistakes I see people making with a wants buyer. Now, with a needs buyer, one of the typical mistakes I see people making is that they don't know their inventory well enough to be able to navigate a sale with a needs buyer. So here's what that looks like. Let's say a needs buyer comes in and they say they need a third row SUV. The reason they need a third row SUV is between grandma and grandpa and the children and the grandkids, you know, they're usually seating at least 4 extra people in addition to, you know, husband and wife, let's call it. So they need 7 people to fit in a vehicle. It's a 7-passenger vehicle. Now, what happens is a salesperson doesn't know they have a third row SUV in inventory, or they don't know that a specific SUV has a third row, or they don't know their inventory well enough to say, hey, there's also a minivan in inventory that maybe I could show you. And if the customer's a needs buyer, they may be receptive to listening to you on that because it does fit their needs. So again, one of the most common mistakes I see people making is just not knowing their inventory well enough to point the customer in the right direction. And again, this loses you credibility. And once you've lost credibility and you lose a customer's trust in you, there's a good chance you've lost the sale. So when it comes to knowing your inventory, this is an everyday thing. And what I mean is you should be checking out your inventory every single day. Most dealerships have some kind of tracking system where you can check out what you have in inventory, either on the website or via CRM or some other form where you can track it. Even if you don't have a system, let's say you're an independent lot, you're a 30-car lot. You could be walking the lot every day to familiarize yourself with your vehicles. If you're not doing this, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. And the reason you're putting yourself at a disadvantage is, again, you only have but so many sales opportunities you're going to see in any given month. So if you're messing it up with the limited amount of sales opportunities that you have, then there's a good chance you're going to lose sales. And if you're losing sales, especially at a small lot or even at a large lot, but with a lot of competition, then you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. So knowing your inventory is a crucial step to keeping credibility with your customers. And when you keep credibility with your customers, you can get them to the next step, which is a test drive, and then presenting them numbers on the vehicle. So most importantly, know your inventory. So let's recap. So vehicle selection comes down to three things. The first thing you should do is you should know your inventory. And the second thing you should be doing is you should be scanning your inventory every day to familiarize yourself with what's changed from day-to-day basis. The third thing you should be doing is you should be familiarizing yourself with the features on the vehicles that you have in inventory. The reason this is important is because let's say a customer is a wants buyer and they came in looking for a specific car, but the car doesn't 100% fit what they're looking for. Well, if you know your inventory well enough, you may have a vehicle that fits exactly what they're looking for perfectly. So even though they came in knowing exactly what they wanted, maybe that what they wanted didn't fit their needs, but a similar vehicle you have in inventory fits exactly what they're looking for. So that's why it's so important to know your inventory inside and out. This is what true sales professionals do. And if you're a true sales professional, you're going to put yourself in the best position to sell cars every single day. Well, thank you so much for watching. This was part 4, vehicle selection. Stay tuned for part 5, where we're going to talk about product presentation. This is where you're going to go over the features and benefits of the vehicle, and you're really going to help yourself towards making a sale. I appreciate your time. If you like what you've been seeing, don't forget to like and subscribe to Dealer Masters LLC on YouTube. Thank you again. Have a great day.